Okay. Everything should be good. We should be live. Mute that just in case for now. Alright, I'll mute the desktop audio. I'll mute everything except that. Okay. Alright, so looks like I'm live on YouTube. Looks like I'm live on Twitch. There I am. My beautiful face. From outer space. Oh my god, I can't believe I... Oh shit. Oh, that's the DVD. Blu-ray. That should be fine with the Blu-ray. Holy crap. You guys wouldn't believe how much Sex and the City related material on Best Buy is sold out. What the fuck? Can't believe I had to do this. My girlfriend just texted me saying, ASAP, check and see if you can nab us a copy of Sex and the City on Blu-ray. Can you imagine how that's going to look like on my search history? On my purchase history. God damn. Just let me know, guys, if you can hear me, if you can see me. Wait, hold on, let me check something on Twitch. Strike. Alright, so I'm going to wait for a few people to jump in here. For the first time, I'm streaming back again on YouTube, so that's pretty crazy. And if you couldn't already tell from the comments, from the title, we are going to be talking Avengers Endgame spoilers. So I'm hoping not to, I'm not going to, spend too much time with them, only because it has been now a good chunk of time that I think a lot of people have already had their say on what's been said about Endgame. But I figured that today, it's funny because I was going to wait a little longer to do this, but two things. One, the okay. So, oh God, what I was gonna say? I was gonna say something. Fuck. So you notice from the title of the stream that we're gonna be talking spoilers. However, I'm not gonna dive too long into them because, like I said, it's been a good while since the movies come out. It made enough money that I think everybody who has been wanting to see it to a capacity has seen it. So it's like, okay, I'm preaching to the choir at this point. So we're just having kind of like a stream of consciousness type of conversation going on with Avengers Endgame. And also, two things. One, the almighty gods, the Marvel gods that are known as the Russo brothers, have proclaimed that today the spoiler ban has been lifted from Avengers Endgame. So basically, spoilers are all are game now. But at the same time, it's like I think I know at least a couple of people, not too many, but a couple of people that still have not seen the movie, surprisingly. But at the same time, like I said, it made enough money that's almost like Marvel's just kind of like, yeah, you should have seen it by now. The numbers show they have seen it by now. Dan for food, welcome to the stream. I do believe I've seen you before. I think you've been a regular a couple times. But there you are. Thank you for joining the stream. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I notice the chat's working. Okay. So everything should be working properly. I hope not too much has been changed up from this scene versus the GameCube stream that I was doing. Okay. So let's see. I'm still waiting for some more people to join on YouTube. So I got some bullet points made up on my phone here. But yeah, they proclaimed that the spoiler ban has been lifted today. So originally I was going to do this later on in the week, but two things. One, I'm way too busy this week. I actually work, starting today, I work a little later, which is why this stream's going to have to be cut a little shorter than expected. But, what was I going to say? But, so many things have already been talked about amongst the people in terms of what... and like I said, people have already seen the movie, and it's been long enough that, okay, a spoiler stream after the second weekend, yeah, it's like I'm preaching to the choir. But also we got that Far From Home trailer debuting, so the Marvel, talk has been kind of re-sparked, even though It has never really fully died down, especially with Instagram. Every time you go on Instagram in the news, there's some kind of meme or there's some kind of tribute being made. I don't know. But it's time to talk Avengers spoilers. If by some off chance I have time at the end of the stream after covering all of my bullet points, I will be doing a reaction to the Far From Home trailer. Just gotta make sure that my thing is plugged in here accordingly so that I don't have like a crazy echo happening right now. So let's see. In terms of Twitch, it looks like I got 3 people watching on Twitch, so that's pretty cool. Still trying to decide if I should I change it to. Okay, because I'm trying to figure out, should I do just chatting or should I do talk shows as my channel here? Which one would benefit the most? So right now it's telling me that I'm going over to Twitch Strike right now, seeing which will fare out best right now. Talk shows channel or the just talking channel? It looks like talk shows would do better, I think. Actually, right now that it says that this hour is not a good time for either one. That's funny. Yeah, I guess it really doesn't matter. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, now I'm looking at what not to stream. Huh, not that many games to not stream. Alright, so like I said, I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes for people to join in. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to start breaking down these bullet points that I have written up. LM Gamer, welcome to the stream. And then let's go back to the card here. Let's go look up Sex in the City some more. God damn it. Yeah, it's Sex and the City, not Sex in the City. That's a common misconception. Oh, it's only available for shipping. What the fuck? Oh, wow. Only available for shipping. God damn. Those are the Blu-rays. Those are sold out. DVD. Update location. This is really important. I don't care about spoilers. Alrighty. Okay. So, let's start breaking down this here spoilers. Let me just hope that everything's working on YouTube, because it keeps giving me a little... Okay, yeah, it looks like it's fine. Alright, so, and you know what, just to be kind of different here, talk shows and podcasts. I'm going to change the channel over to talk shows and podcasts, see if that works. See if that brings in any kind of better retention. Alright, so, let me break down these spoilers. So, I'm going to breeze through some of them, because like I said, some things have already been talked about for certain folks. It doesn't really look like... It looks like most people have already known. I mean, Ellen Gamer, have you seen Endgame? I highly encourage that you don't, as much as I know that you like watching my streams and all that stuff, if you have not seen Endgame, I recommend going and checking the movie out and then catching the stream on a repeat. It's still going to be here. I'm a prime Twitcher. So it's still going to be here for 60 days, so you have plenty of time to catch the stream on a repeat later on. And then, checking out the spoilers there. But I just don't want to risk ruining great moments for you. Even if the movie has already been out for almost 2 weeks, about a week and a half. It's been out for 2 weekends in a row, breaking records. It's coming after that. Avatar booty. And it's crazy. Oh, that's crazy. I just realized I can scroll through my tabs by going like this. That's crazy with my mouse. Alright, this is actually pretty dope. Okay. I missed your stream. I won't see the movie. Okay, then. You've been warned, and you've been warned. Everybody else has been watching, who's watching the stream right now, either on Twitch or on YouTube. We're starting. It's been 10 minutes. We're starting with the spoilers. So, first on my list here of Endgame spoilers to kind of break down, Hawkeye. Because the movie opens up with Hawkeye, appropriately so, because he was completely gone from Infinity War, and that was the big question on a lot of people's minds. Where the fuck is Hawkeye? So it was really poignant to start the opening scene with him. It was a really good kind of introduction. Also to kind of reiterate how much of a terrifying thing the snap really was. Because the snap is, a lot of people consider it to be a very comic booky story arc for the snap to kind of obliterate half the population in the universe. But to me, one of the big takeaways I had with Infinity War and with the opening of this movie, with Hawkeye and his family just having some quality time, having a picnic outdoors, only for like that little nuanced moment of Hawkeye turning around and just casually looking for his daughter. Like, he's not even terrified. He's just kind of like, all right, come on. I think her name's Lila or Leela. All right, come on, Leela, let's go. And the dust is right in front of him. The dust is right in front of him, but because it's just dust, he figures, oh, it was just a gust of wind that picked up some dirt, and he just kind of like walks past it, just looking for Lila. It's just kind of like, Lila? Well, yeah, looks around the tree, but the dust is right there. He literally just walked through his daughter. It's a little moments like that I'm just like, yeah, that shit is scary. And what scares me even more so, like I said, takeaway from Infinity War was how this is kind of Marvel's interpretation or reinterpretation of the Rapture. Something that a show recently that ended after only 3 seasons. It ended. It didn't get canceled. They ended it after 3 seasons consciously. Called The Leftovers on HBO. That tackles the Rapture pretty much without really getting deep into religious connotations. It just kind of says, okay, what if we look at the Rapture, see it as happening, as having happened, and what do the people here left on Earth do? What do you do when half of the, it's one thing for the apocalypse to happen and just manage to have survived. What if you were chosen to be left behind and then the other people were whisked off into a better place, or just a place where they don't have to deal with shit? Hold on, let me respond to a text. Funny, it's that whole thing about Sex and the City. So my girlfriend wants a copy of Sex and the City on either DVD or Blu-ray, the movie, not the series. I actually bought her the series. The movie, I just looked it up on Best Buy. It's gone. It's gone. It's sold out. And the copies that aren't sold out are only available for shipping. So she would have to wait like 2-3 days for them. Okay. So yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to talk about when it came to Hawkeye. Is that anyways, yeah, how it opened up, and it reminded me just how scary the snap really was, especially with him looking for his family, and then it cuts to black, and you just hear like thunder arranging out in the background, and you know that it's not really thunder; it's more so like a bunch of planes and a bunch of cars just crashing into each other because a shit ton of people just disappeared. So it just like it showed in the end credit scene for Infinity War, that shows Fury and Mariah Hill. In the city, you see a helicopter go down. You see cars, crash into one another because some drivers were snapped away. Some pilots were snapped away, and that just kind of reinvigorates my fear for a potential rapture. I know for a fact that if a rapture were to happen, my girlfriend would be one of the ones taken away. I would be left behind. So I'm preparing myself. I'm preparing myself because of how bad of a cynic I am. I guess we'll use that as a segue into talking about Hawkeye and his arc in this movie, and him being left alive at the end, being one of the survivors to kind of trail off, is because here and there, having his family taken away, After all the shit they had to go through, not just within Endgame, but also within let me pick up the mic a little bit here. Not only within Endgame, but also within the original Avengers, being having his mind getting fucked with by Loki, and then also all the things like he would foreshadow, well, not foreshadow, but he would reference Budapest, apparently a mission that he had to do with Black Widow, and just so many things. He was the one that earned it. He actually had something to lose. So him being kept alive by the end and going through his arc, turning into Ronin. I love the fact that they took the Ronin story arc. I didn't read it, I didn't read through the comics of that, but I understand from sources from podcasts that I listened to that apparently in those comics he actually did die, like technically. He did die and came back as like a revenant sort of figure called Ronin. Here, it was more of a metaphorical thing. Hawkeye died, metaphorically speaking, and out of the ashes came Ronin, who was like, pretty much what had happened to his family was kind of like his parents dying outside of the movie theater type thing that propelled him into becoming Ronin, aka Punisher. I was gonna say Batman, but then technically Batman still leaves them alive. At least most interpretations of Batman, the exception of Ben Affleck's Batman, who just flat out kills people. So I can't really say Batman. I want to say more so the Punisher, because the Punisher is the one that flat out says, "Fuck all this." Like no one's gonna be left alive after this. It's just like, so that's pretty much what happens there. Not much more that I can really say about Hawkeye that hasn't already been said, except that I enjoyed his arc here. I do think that even within a 3-hour movie, one of the things that I think could have taken its time, aside from the time travel speak that I'll tackle in a little bit, and it's one of my bullet points here, is his, I don't want to say switch. He didn't really switch that much, but I felt like we got classic Hawkeye a little quicker than expected after his turn as Ronin. I felt like, with his tattoo sleeve and his new haircut and all this stuff, and especially when he rejoined the rest of the group, and he was just so gun-ho about doing the time travel thing, knowing the risk that maybe he's gonna get killed, maybe he'll be torn apart atom by atom. It's a character beat. It's an interesting character beat, because at that point you could argue that maybe he's a little bit suicidal because of what happened to his family. He's just kind of like, he's in a very fuck it sort of form, fuck it sort of mentality. But then again, you could argue that maybe seeing his family is his way of, like, old Hawkeye kind of bouncing back a little bit, and that's why a little bit of that humor started to creep up back. A little bit of that classic Hawkeye sarcasm was kind of coming back. Hello, I'm a creeper creeping streams, creeping up in the streams. TTV Jinjani, welcome to the stream. Thank you for saying hi, by the way. Where was I? I was talking about Hawkeye here. Well, actually, I was wrapping up about Hawkeye, because I really can't say any more than that, except that I enjoyed his arc, and I understand why he was the one to be left alive after circumstances kind of unfold in the middle of this movie. Moving on to my next bullet point here, and I'm trying to go in chronological order with the film. So that's why I opened up. It opens up with Hawkeye, so I figured that I guess I will talk about Hawkeye first before tackling, including his arc later on in the movie. When he's like playing hot potato with the new Infinity Glove and all that stuff. Okay. Oh, my poor baby. She's robbed of a Sex and the City DVD. She's texting me right now. Okay, so the next thing that I think surprised an awful lot of people, and it's definitely surprised me, and going like, okay, well, what are we gonna do for the next 2 hours and 45 minutes, is the opening 15 minutes of this goddamn movie. And I'm gonna kind of compile things, or compartmentalize a few things here. First and foremost is the very early rescue and reunion of Tony Stark. Well, the early rescue of Tony Stark. I mean, that was quick. I was expecting him to flow out in outer space for a little bit longer, but noticing how Captain Marvel just showed up, and, well, I'm not gonna say just showed up, but Captain Marvel showed up, rescued him and Nebula, brought him back to Earth, and we get a very impromptu and very surprising reunion with Cap and Tony. that, like I said, we weren't expecting to be in those circumstances when they were reunited, and also we weren't expecting it to happen so soon in the movie. It was literally the first 10 minutes, and it's happening. So that's when I realized, okay, there's a reason for why they showed Tony and Cap together in the first look trailer, the first look with the little snippet, the little like minute and a half bit that they released when tickets went on sale. Along with Tony and Pepper getting reunited, like hugging in the field. I'm like, why would you guys show that? That was a little premature. I'm a little scared. Now I realized why they did that. It's because it's literally the first 15 minutes of the movie. You still have no idea what's about to unfold. So I'm like, okay, all right. I guess that kind of makes sense. I apologize, Marvel. I think at this point I should realize what you're doing, Marvel. So that was very surprising, that little reunion. And this is where we lead to the scene that I think a lot of people are going to use as an example for why possibly, just possibly, I'm sorry, Robert Downey Jr. could potentially, and I know that it's all about that, it's all about the bucks put behind the campaign, but I think with this scene, which is Tony's little argument scene with Cap about, where were you? You said, I love the fact that he called it back to Age of Ultron. By the way, before I get any further, before I forget, this movie, I hate saying this because it's going to sound like a blast against Joss Whedon, but then again, Joss Whedon, you got Avengers, the first Avengers, the first Avengers movie, which to me is one of the more replayable movies I have in my library. It's one of those movies that you put it on. I don't care where it's at in the movie in the 2.5 hours. I'm gonna sit down and watch it unless I have to work or go to school. But I'm gonna watch subconsciously, even if I'm like multitasking. If it's out in the background, I'm gonna be paying attention to it to some degree. But what I was gonna say is that this movie, more so than Infinity War, this movie Endgame made Age of Ultron better by giving it so many callbacks and by tying to so many, well, not to so many things, but to a number of things in Age of Ultron that I'm like, ever since Endgame, I'm like, I want to rewatch Age of Ultron. I didn't really care for Age of Ultron too much up until this point. I liked it enough, but I was kind of on it until now. Now I legitimately want to go and get the 4K Steelbook, buy it, and just have it be part of my collection. And I never thought I would say that about Age of Ultron, but here I am. Here I am going like, wow, there's that callback to what Tony said about, you said that, we will lose, and you said we were going to be doing that together. Where were you? We lost, and where were you? And this is gonna be that's that scene where you definitely feel for Tony, especially because of how frail he looks. One of the things that they changed from the trailer is him, talking to Pepper in that little recording. He looked a little thin, but he didn't look too bad. In the movie, he looks even way worse, and you're just kind of like, oh my god, this is kind of hard to watch. So you get that scene, and you really feel for Tony Stark, and this is that Oscar scene that I think if people really want to campaign for Robert Downey Jr. to either at least get nominated or to possibly win for Avengers Endgame after playing this role for 10 years and in I think 6 or 7 movies, or 6 or 7 appearances, separate appearances in 6 and 7 individual films, this would be the scene that they would show at the ceremony when they call out his name when they mention the nominees. If that is to happen, I'm still, even after all these months, I'm still a little in awe, in dumbfoundedness that Black Panther got nominated for Best Picture. Not that it doesn't deserve it. It's just that I can think of I don't know. I'm just gonna say it. It just feels like a money thing. It just feels like the amount of money they put into it. But that's a whole separate thing. I'm not even gonna tackle this here. This is the Endgame spoiler stream. That's what I'm gonna tackle here. Okay. I'll tackle that. I'm gonna tackle that in a little bit. LM Gamer. So don't worry. Where was I? But yeah, very early reunion. A lot of people, I saw some comments saying, okay, let's talk about Captain Marvel. So, 2 things. One, a lot of people are confused as to why Captain Marvel found Tony so easily. Funny, it's kind of funny, and hopefully people are able to piece it. I think people were able to piece this together quite quickly, because otherwise the Russos would have needed to like put out a video or something to be like, hey guys, this is what went down. So if you guys remember the end credit scene for Captain Marvel, I guess I'm going to be spoiling a little bit of Captain Marvel here, but one of the end credit scenes for Captain Marvel, the mid credit scenes, not the last one, because the last one was just a gag, literally, but the mid credit scene for Captain Marvel is very easily a scene that was meant for Endgame. You can clearly tell it was supposed to be for Endgame. It was supposed to be in Endgame, and I think for time and because they knew that it was part of Captain Marvel, they cut it out. But it's the scene of the beeper going off and Cap and the rest of the team looking at the whoa. Everything okay? Did I drop frames? Okay. Just making sure that I'm not dropping any frames. But Cap and the rest of the team looking at the beeper, being like, okay, why did it turn off? Black Widow turns around and there's Captain Marvel asking, where's Fury? It's, I think, at this moment in time where the team briefs Captain Marvel on what happened and what their last known, idea of where Tony went to is. Which I think with Hulk being there, with Bruce Banner being there, and Rocket, because Rocket knows from Thor and knows from Star-Lord when they were together last. Star-Lord says we're going to Titan. Me and Iron Man and the rest of the Guardians are gonna go to Titan to try to take down Thanos. So that's how Rocket knows. Hulk kind of knows where that ship is going off to, not precisely, but around the general area. This gives Captain Marvel the general area where they're gonna be adrift in space, or she's on her way to Titan, but she notices a ship that kind of resembles what Rocket might have mentioned, looks like the Milano, and is like, okay. Or the Benatar, I believe this is the new ship, because I think this is a brand new ship. The Milano was technically destroyed. I don't know why we're still calling it the Milano, because technically the Milano got destroyed in the original Guardians, right? And the revamped version at the end of Guardians, the first Guardians, is called the Benatar. By the way, in case you couldn't tell, 80s references. Milano, Alyssa Milano, and then Benatar, Pat Benatar. Great. Ties into Guardians excellent. So this is how Captain Marvel found, Tony Stark rather easily at the beginning. It's just that they cut that scene out to make for time, but they noticed that they already put it in Captain Marvel, so they figured, fuck it, we'll just leave it out. People will be able to connect the dots. This brings me to Captain Marvel herself. Let's talk about Captain Marvel. Gotta be, okay, I'm gonna say it right now. If you guys, whoever's watching on either YouTube or Twitch, if you are following me on YouTube or you're subscribed to my YouTube channel and you watched my review of Endgame, my spoilers-free discussion for Endgame, I'll kind of reiterate here real fast. I mentioned in my review for Endgame that there was one particular character that I liked better in their original films. By the way, I threw in a little misdirection in my comment there. I said films. Technically, it's actually, real talk, it's only one film, and that's for Captain Marvel herself. Captain Marvel is the character that I did not like in this movie, that I liked more so in her original standalone film as I wouldn't say charismatic. I just liked her more as a character in Captain Marvel than I did here. Here, I did not like her. I don't know why, but it was just really hard to, get that feeling of like, you go girl type of, I felt more so way more for the other female characters, Valkyrie, Black Widow, Gwyneth Paltrow now in her rescue armor. I felt more that for them than I did for Captain Marvel, only because her attitude at the beginning, there was just something about it that was just like, okay, what is going on here? And then also, you could argue that I was a little disappointed by the fact that Captain Marvel, and then the way everybody else was talking about her and her powers, when everybody walked out of Captain Marvel back in March, everyone was like, oh my gosh, watch out, Thanos, she's coming for your ass. Oh, Thanos, watch out, she's about to lay the smackdown. Yeah, she fought him a little bit, and she had that good moment where he tries to headbutt her, and she's just like not fazed about it. I will admit that was a nice little fun little visual. But besides that, she didn't do shit. And understandably so. If someone's gonna take down Thanos, it has to be someone who's been there for a while. One of the main four, one of the main six at least, Avengers. Or I guess by the time we get to the end, there's only five. I guess and we'll talk. I'll talk about that in a bit. So it makes sense that maybe Captain Marvel was not going to be the one to really bring him down, but at the same time, she barely. I gotta be honest. I think her total amount of screen time in this movie is like what, 10 minutes, or maybe even less than that. With the little bit at the beginning, her with her brand new haircut and that little conversation she's having with Black Widow and the rest of the team via communication satellite after the 5-year jump, and then at the end, it's like something's entering the atmosphere, and I'm like, oh, there she is. Jesus Christ, how long did it take you? And like I said, it's the fact that all these characters are going, where you been? And her response is, like I said, just attitude. I understand that there's other planets out there that needed protection and didn't have the Avengers. That's a solid point. It's just that layer of attitude that I just couldn't get behind. I'm just kind of like, it's just, I don't know. I just did not like her. I liked her way better in her standalone. By the way, Schnitzel Fritzel, thank you for joining the stream and commenting. Welcome, sir, if you're still watching. By the way, like I said, guys, I'm trying to retain 3 concurrent viewers. If you can help out with that here on Twitch, I would really much appreciate it. That's my only last step to hit affiliate. I'm really trying to become affiliate, so if you guys can help out with that, much appreciated. God, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, but yeah, Captain Marvel. Spoiler alert, she's the character that I did not like in this, and I liked her better in her standalone film. And I'm a little nervous that I try not to wish bad on anybody, but I'm a little paranoid that there might be, and I know that this is a subject for memes, especially on the internet, especially on YouTube, because of how there's so much toxicity on the internet in general, but more so I feel like more so YouTube in the comment section than YouTube and Facebook, I think, are the two with and Twitter. Everything except maybe Instagram, and even then, Instagram. There's a lot of folks on Instagram. It was the people on Instagram that drove Kelly Marie Tran from The Last Jedi to shut her shit down. By God, but considering the level of toxicity there really is on the internet, I'm kind of like on the fence here. But there's a little bit of body language going on in interviews and rumblings going around that maybe Brie Larson's not such a good person to get along with on set. At least on the set for Avengers. I don't know how it was on Captain Marvel, but and like I said, I don't know if it's played up for laughs, but I'm just hoping that when it comes to those interviews, like Don Cheadle's kind of like, or Chris Hemsworth, but what does add up is the fact that you don't really see an awful lot of group shots. Like, I see more group shots of Karen Gillan as Nebula and Sean Gunn as the physical stand-in for Rocket, more with the main Avengers, like Robert Downey and Chris Evans and all of them, than Captain Marvel. Than Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. She's hardly in there. I think the only group thing that I saw Brie Larson in was that all-female lunch table that they had that Robert Downey Jr. was like taking photos. Anyways, like I said, I don't know these people. I don't know their personal lives. It's just face value of what I'm looking at, surface value, and nothing's confirmed. Nothing's, none of that is like gospel at all. In fact, I'm hoping to God that that's not the case, because I don't wish bad on anyone, as much of a cynic as I am. But yeah, it's just really weird that she barely got any screen time in this movie. She was not the Achilles heel for Thanos that we were all kind of expecting to be. And like I said, her attitude is like, okay, well, I guess, Captain Marvel, Anyways, let's move on, because I'm only, at the beginning here. So, surprising factor number 3 of these opening 15 minutes that just caught me off guard. Thanos is dead, bro. Wow Pro 12, welcome to the stream. Thank you for watching. Opinions on what Phase 3 will be after Endgame having no credit scene. You mean Phase 4? Because that was Phase 3. This wrapped up Phase 3. Phase 4. I don't know, but I guess I'll tackle that here before I get to, because I did have it as a bullet point here. It was literally going to be at the end of my stream, but I guess since now you're asking right now what pro, and I don't know if you're going to be here for the entirety of the stream, so I'll answer your question now. Um, I don't know. I do know that we have a Black Widow movie coming, which will most definitely be a prequel of some kinds. Now after the events, we know we have an Eternals movie that is circling. I don't think she's been confirmed. I don't think she's like signed on with in black and white, but Angelina Jolie is set to, she's in talks to be in the Eternals movie. We technically have Far From Home. I think I don't. Would you consider Far From Home Phase 4 or Phase 3? And then I have a villain, and I'm not gonna mention this villain just yet because I do want to kind of mount him up with the rest of this conversation here in my bullet points. But there is a villain that people are bringing up to being the next big baddie for Phase 4, or the next cycle of MCU movies. So we have those things to kind of chew on. But the fact that there's no end credit scene in this movie is actually kind of perfect. In the theater, when I was actually sitting in the theater, I was a little bummed. But as I walked out, and like literally within a minute, I was like, you know what? It's fine. The movie had such a compelling sense of finality that I'm like, no need for an end credit scene. There's really no need for an end credit scene. I didn't need that. I didn't need it, and it's fine. I was a little bummed within the moment, but after the fact, I was just kind of like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. By the way, did you guys watch Game of Thrones? Not gonna spoil Game of Thrones. If you guys watch Game of Thrones, I'm not gonna spoil anything. Don't worry. I'm just gonna say that somebody on the set, from a technical perspective, somebody on the set done goofed. Set decorator or the cinematographer or whoever, some PAs, as we call them in the industry, personal assistants. They done goofed on the set of Game of Thrones because apparently somebody left a little modern day item on the set of Game of Thrones that it actually made its way onto the camera and nobody saw it. Especially a particular actress who's literally right in front of it and didn't catch it. It's like, okay, how did this? Alrighty then. That's really funny. The coffee cup, yeah, the Starbucks coffee cup. Starbucks coffee cup. The Game of Thrones is brought to you by Starbucks. I think that's pretty funny. Apparently, it's not the first time. Apparently, and I don't know if it's photoshopped. I don't think it's photoshopped, but apparently there was an earlier shot where Jamie Lannister is like, he's like this. He has his hands crossed, but apparently underneath one of his hands, he has a Starbucks Christmas cup from Starbucks. Maybe he didn't get to put it down in time, that they rolled cameras so quick that they're like, oh, fuck, shit. Like, let me try to hide it. And he didn't hide it well enough. But yeah, that was pretty funny. But Woe Pro 6, you think they will bring in the Sinister Six into the MCU? I'm going to go on a limb and say no. And the reason why, I'm going to need some water right now in a bit because my voice is starting to get parched. Maybe there are time travelers in Game of Thrones. You know that there's a crazy ass theory that Game of Thrones is actually takes place in the very far, 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 far future. Like Great Britain in the very far future, that lizards evolved into dragons, and it just came kind of full circle. There's a crazy I think there's a theory out there that Game of Thrones is actually post-apocalyptic. But whatever, whatever. Just like technically Star Wars is actually in the past, despite their futuristic technology with lightsabers and all that stuff. Star Wars is technically in the past because the opening always says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Let me respond to a text here as I catch my breath because I'm starting to get a little lightheaded. When I talk a lot, I get a little lightheaded. I have to catch my breath a little bit. I'm going to need to go get some water in a bit. Um, so yeah, early death for Thanos at the very beginning. Like I said, it just kind of lent to the whole factor of me like, so what are we supposed to do for the next 2 hours and 45 minutes? Just like that quick death, but it kind of also reinforced because of how early that death was and how I kind of want to say unceremoniously it was. They killed Thanos. It was like at the beginning there, I was like, that this is where that time travel factor is definitely gonna come into play. It's like it's not. We're a little smarter than this. We're gonna catch on. Time travel is gonna be involved much more thoroughly, and after killing off Thanos that way, in a very graphic sort of way for a Marvel movie, even though he's an alien and his blood is purple and all that, it was still kind of graphic that they were able to just flat out just chop both his arm and his head. Goddamn, he went for the head. Thor went for the head there. But it was definitely a very guffawing moment for Thanos to die there. But like I say, it just kind of reinforced the whole time factor thing. And right after this, 5 years later, which is funny because the whole 5 years later thing, I was expecting the movie to start with that. So like I said, that whole early rescue with Tony and picking up right from where the movie left off, where Infinity War left off, I was like, oh, this is mildly surprising. Interesting. I guess that's not much more that I can really talk about with that with Thanos dying, but the 5 years later thing. So there's three elements to talk about with the 5 years later gap, because I really can't comment on I already talked about Ronan. Captain America's Captain America. Black Widow's doing her thing about trying to keep however much peace she can on Earth. Like at this point, the Avengers really did not avenge shit, so it's kind of like, well, I guess we can only kind of move on from there. But Cap is the only one that's just kind of like, we can't move on. We can't let this shit go. But I guess we kind of have to until a miracle happens, and a miracle does happen, and the miracle happens in the form of a rat. The stuff of memes, ladies and gentlemen, because ever since the movie, the internet has been abuzz with the sole hero of Avengers Endgame, which is that fucking rat. Because people have connected the dots and said, if that rat had not pressed those buttons on the van to let Ant-Man back into our world after spending, according to him, for us it was 5 years, for him, according to what he said, 5 hours in the quantum realm, we wouldn't have had a movie, and our heroes would not have saved the day or time, essentially, and humanity. So yeah, long live the rat from Avengers Endgame. But then we get to two characters that I was having a conversation with on with my coworkers, that they did two particular characters dirty. One of my coworkers at work, he really did not like how they did Hulk in this movie, or as he's dubbed in this movie, Professor Hulk. So the reason for that being is that he did not mind Professor Hulk as a character. I, for one, did not mind because it was doing two things. It was acknowledging something that was almost for a little bit at the beginning of Infinity War kind of ignored. Then again, he didn't have enough screen time to really dive into this. But one of the things that... Oh, I pressed the wrong button. One of the things that I was kind of like, okay, are we going to talk about this at all? Are we going to address this at all? Was the fact that Hulk was able to talk in Thor Ragnarok. So I was a little like, okay, why are you not doing this in Infinity War? But then I think about the fact that Hulk, not Bruce Banner, but Hulk only had like 5, 6, maybe less than 10 minutes of screen time at the beginning of Infinity War, let alone the whole movie. It was actually one of the most misleading things about Infinity War, seeing Hulk in the trailer, only in that shot of them all running, only for him not to be in the movie. So Hulk in this one, full on talking, okay, you brought that back, but then with a little twist, and the twist is that apparently through years of practice, the 5 years of practice he's had, Bruce was able to meld the physicality of Hulk with the brain of Bruce Banner, and this was the closest that the MCU is gonna come to giving us the Grey Hulk comic book storyline as they're going to do. Because if you guys don't know, I didn't read Grey Hulk. I didn't read every single aspect of the Grey Hulk storyline, but the overall premise of Grey Hulk is that Grey Hulk is pretty much Hulk, but he is sentient. He is conscious of what's going on. He's not a mindless brute. He's intelligent. He's got the brains of Bruce Banner. He can talk, but he still has a little bit of the angst and the bro factor of the Hulk, that he's sarcastic all the time. He's kind of rude and douchey at times. And that's pretty much what we got here with this version of Hulk, where he is very sarcastic. He is a bit more bro. He's a bit more like, look at my muscles, check me out. Yeah, especially with him eating a meal that only Dwayne The Rock Johnson would eat, with all those fucking pancakes and sausages and all that shit. It was getting me kind of hungry, actually. I was craving breakfast when I was seeing him eat that. Damn. But with his bravado about, like, hey, check out this, take a picture with me, guys. Come on, hey, Hulk smash. It's yeah, it was funny, and the visual of him, I will admit, the CG on him was a little here and there. There were some shots where it looked great, and there's some other shots where I'm like, yeah, it's very CG. I don't know what it is, but the more brute, angry, animalistic Hulk from the first Avengers was a bit more realistic and grounded looking than this Hulk. This Hulk looked a little, I don't know, it just looked kind of iffy. It kind of reminded me of the Eric Bana Hulk at times, and not all the time, but at times this version of Hulk looked kind of iffy in certain shots. But what a lot of people made the argument of him being done dirty in this movie is that he just didn't get his not his comeuppance, but he didn't get to inflict comeuppance on Thanos because of the beating he took in Infinity War. That was the main gripe that people, including my coworker at work, had, was that he did not get to at least throw in a couple of punches towards Thanos. Almost every other hero, with the exception of some of the people that had to, hold down the Chitauri and then the Black Order, who came back in this one, had to fend them off. But Hulk didn't get at least one or two punches or a rematch with Thanos, and I will admit I will admit, part of me kind of wishes that would have happened. Part of me does kind of wish that would have came to pass, but at the same time, like I said, there's just too much happening in this movie that I can kind of see why that was something that needed to be omitted from. Maybe not the cutting room floor. It didn't feel like that was like a deleted scene or anything. It felt like maybe they had to cut that out from the writing standpoint. Like when they actually wrote this film back to back with Infinity War, they actually had to make the conscious decision that there's just too much in here, and we came up with Professor Hulk there. We got to cut it out. We got to cut out, from a writing standpoint, some kind of rematch between him and Thanos. I know we wish to bring so many callbacks to light, but this is something that we just cannot do. My girlfriend still wants that Sex in the City. God damn it. It's sold out. I told her that it's sold out. So the second character that some people are also kind of like, oh man, they did that to him. Let's talk about Thor. So the movie opens up with angry Thor, angry but still very sexy Thor. Because he's angry, justifiably so. Just like Rocket said, he feels he fucked up. He didn't go for the head. So it's understandable that he just kind of blacked out for a moment and straight up cut Thanos' head off at the beginning there. Like Rocket's like, just like, what did you do? It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess all that anger just kind of came back to bite him in the ass, and that's what made him cut his head off. So we fast forward 5 years, and one of the biggest gags about the 5-year jump is that Thor just did not give a fuck anymore. He let himself go. He has no purpose because he killed Thanos. He killed one of the biggest baddies. He technically avenged the death of so many that he's loved, including, as much of a tumultuous relationship he had with him, his brother, Loki. He avenged his death. Everything has been said and done. There's nothing left to do but to just drink beer, alcohol, eat junk food, and play Fortnite. One good thing that came out of that, one of the good things that came out of that scene, though, was the return of of Jesus Christ, I'm blanking out on his name. Let me bring back his name. Is his name Korg or let me hold on. Taika Waititi's character. Hold on. Holy shit, I am blanking out on his name. The Rock dude. The Rock character. Not The Rock, but you know. Korg. Yeah, oh, I was right. Okay, Korg. I was right. Yeah, Korg. The Return of Korg, wearing a Hawaiian shirt, even though he's made out of rocks. But seeing him in there, that was pretty fun. That was pretty fun bringing him back. Bringing Taika Waititi back as that role, he cracks me the fuck up. So I was glad to see him being brought back there. And this whole overall gag of Thor being overweight and letting himself go was fun, especially the jokes early at the beginning with him having his glasses on. It was one that was kind of ripped off from The Office, but still pretty funny. Where they're like, "Is he asleep? No, I think he's dead," and he's just with his glasses. Tony appropriately calling him Lebowski. You know, it's like it's the first thing that we thought when we saw him. It's just like, yep, he definitely looks like the Big Lebowski. Now on to one of the things that kind of killed it for me was the fact that they actually stuck with this joke all the way until the very end. I kind of wish that he would have reverted back to classic looking Thor with the muscles, with the my coworker even made a joke that part of me, thinks that okay, that's a fun joke, and another part of me is like, they should have just done it. They should have just done it, which is that he would have like cast some lightning onto himself, and then the lightning would have like toned up his muscles and gave him abs back or something like that. But at the same time, I guess that was just too unrealistic at this point for the writers and the directors to do. So yeah, part of me kind of wishes we would have had classic fit Thor there at the end instead of Thor with his classic uniform, but then he made room in his like chest plate to fit his stomach. Yeah, there's a part of me that kind of wishes that joke would have ended soon, because by the end of it, I was just kind of like, no, I just kind of wish we would have had our classic Thor back, so that we would have had the definitive version of Thor wielding both Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, Captain America with his new uniform, and then Iron Man, and then as soon as he shows up, Hulk going toe-to-toe with Thanos and his army. It would have been just a quintessential image. But there's just a slight little part of me that was bugged by the fact that Thor is over there kind of bouncing like Torbjorn from Overwatch with his belly. There's just part of me that just kind of wishes that would have been taken back. Okay, so be right back, guys. I'm gonna go get myself some water. Take a little breather here. I'm gonna go grab some water. I shall be right back. So let me put on the BRB. Do I not have the BRB? Oh yeah, I do. So let me mute the mic and I shall return. Don't go anywhere. All right, I'm back. That took less time than I thought it would. I'm surprised nobody's watching on YouTube. I'm really surprised that nobody's watching on YouTube. That's crazy. I got more viewers on Twitch than I do on YouTube. It's funny because I wasn't originally gonna stream on Twitch. It was just gonna be a YouTube thing, but that proved differently. Okay, so what else was I going to cover? So I talked about the 5 years later gap, but it was with the rat allowing Ant-Man to come back and explain the whole time travel thing to Professor Hulk. Iron Man, who of course his compulsive nature will not let him go, and eventually brings the solution of time traveling. Even though he's got a family at this point, it's funny because did anyone else think that it was kind of weird that when they showed him with his daughter, they were really holding back on Pepper? Like they were not showing her for a while. That I'm like, wouldn't it be crazy if he got with somebody else? Because they were not showing her, and then finally they cut to her, and I'm like, oh, okay, that was kind of weird. That was a little suspect, but all right, that's fine. So this leads us to the time travel concept, which makes up pretty much the entire second act of the movie. Like the first act is this whole opening 15 minutes of what happened with Thanos and them trying to get him back, killing him, and not finding a solution. The time jump, where characters are 5 years later and trying to recruit them, get them on the same page. And then the second act, which makes up the second hour, is pretty much, for lack of a better term, the highlight reel portion of the movie. It's the moment where, you know how there's certain TV shows where when the show ends, and let me check, I have a notification here. Check this right here. When the show ends, like a sitcom. Like, for example, Boy Meets World. I remember when Boy Meets World ended and they were doing the final episode. The final episode had so many callbacks that they would have cutaways to previous episodes. Like, to previous episodes of what happened, like, like remembering the times. That's kind of what the second hour of this movie is, where the whole time travel aspect was used to not only get the stones back, but also to pretty much take a look back at the MCU at some of its greatest moments, which ironically include Thor the Dark World. But it makes sense. They had to, because that's where the Reality Stone was kind of stemmed from. So they needed to tackle Thor the Dark World, even though that's, I think, universally considered Marvel's worst movie. Like, it's just so bland that it's just kind of like... now, granted, some people might disagree, but I think on an average scale, everybody can agree that Thor the Dark World is the worst Marvel, the MCU movie. So it's funny that that's one of the movies that we actually had to revisit in the time travel aspect of this movie is Thor the Dark World. But we had to, because like I said, the Reality Stone. It's cool though that when we do visit this portion of the movie, Thor has some closure with his mother, and that's kind of what brings him back, because after losing everything, seeing his mother at least one last time, and it's cool that his mother wasn't dumbfounded by this whole thing. She was kind of like, yeah, you're not present Thor, you're like future Thor, you're not my Thor at the moment, but I'll talk to you like a nephew sort of way, like, or like you're a friend of my actual sons, like you have that like some families have that friend who's not related, but they kind of talk to them like they are related. It's funny. Hmm. Sorry, I'm looking at an article right now. The article is actually from IGN. It's pretty much their breakdown of what was either altered or cut out from from the movie that was actually still in the trailers for the misdirect. Interesting. So, God damn it, I had a still selling for $10 cheaper. Okay, thank you Google for letting me know that there's sales going on. Okay. So we get brought into the time travel concept. Like I said, this plays out as a highlight reel. We look at the Avengers with that whole scene, which I'll break down a little bit more. But it's cool that these scenes are not going to make us look at past Marvel movies the same way. Like I said, Thor: The Dark World. It was interesting that we went back there so that Thor can have closure with his mother. We went back to Guardians of the Galaxy, except this served more so in the favor of Endgame than it did for Guardians of the Galaxy. It was cool to have the music kind of come back in there to keep the humor of the movie alive. And let me take off this little auto exposure thing on my camera. It's bothering me here. Properties. Let me change that real fast. But it served more so for Endgame because it is this portion of the movie that allowed past Thanos, 2014 Thanos, to know about the plan, and this is essentially what brought us back Thanos after his death at the beginning. Is the whole screw up with Nebula's little encoding that messed up with past evil Nebula that gave us the little workaround here and made Thanos aware and brought Thanos back pretty much as the main threat. It was cool though that this version of Thanos did not have his relaxed gear. After seeing him in his full relaxed gear in Infinity War, where he didn't have the armor, he just had like the sleeveless shirt, just going around going bam, 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 like that. It was cool that we got much more classic, traditional looking Thanos in this movie with his full armor and his helmet and even a double-bladed sword, which looks a little inconvenient. I feel like you could easily cut yourself that way if you're trying to like, maneuver it, but Thanos found a way. It was then, let's see, we jump into Avengers for a moment. And this opens up to a particular scene involving Loki that when it happened, it was kind of like a laughing sort of thing, like a little, it was kind of a gag, but then it was one of those like, you have to do a double take, like, wait a minute. Did that just happen? And now I'm noticing how very little, well, unless maybe it was my effort to avoid spoilers, but not many people talking about this scene until I saw some articles from major publications finally going like, hey, can we talk about that Loki scene? And it's basically the scene where we jump back to Avengers, and in their efforts trying to get the Tesseract of Ant-Man shrinking down, Tony looking at Captain America's ass, and then, like I said, this whole entire scene making me look at Avengers differently. Like, if I were to rewatch Avengers and watch that ending, I'm going to think back to how, it really played out, I don't want to say awkwardly, but in a very weird way where it's like, okay, well, now we got to clean up. Okay. Arrest Loki, put the muzzle on him, but now we got to clean up this debris and go downstairs in the elevator and, just casually wait with the Tesseract in a suitcase. And it was very mundane. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for. How flashy Avengers made it, but in reality, after, in between scenes, you could say, the whole shit played out a bit mundane. If it wasn't for our heroes jumping in there trying to, like Ant-Man put it, perform a time heist on the Tesseract. In their efforts that proved fruitless after Hulk smashes Tony's face, which I think he should have been dead with that amount of force, but okay, movie. Loki grabs the Tesseract and zips away. Alternate Loki. Alternate timeline Loki. So obviously this question will be answered in the Loki spin-off series that we're going to get in Disney Plus. Now they got an out. Now they have an explanation as to why there's a Loki TV series. And I guess in a way Loki's now alive. And this isn't past like pre-Avengers or because honestly after Infinity War I thought to myself, okay, so the Loki TV series got announced. It's probably going to be not only a prequel to everything that came after the first Avengers, but probably even before Thor. It might even be like the past event, the young adventures of Loki. And it's not gonna be called that, but it's just conceptually that's what I thought it was gonna be. But now after seeing that scene of him whisking away with the Tesseract, I think it's just gonna be contemporary, usual Loki that we know. Granted, it's not going to be the evolved, much nicer, much more. Melted away Loki that we had at the beginning of Infinity War and at the end of Thor Ragnarok. This is still going to be the homicidal Loki that we had at the very end there of the original Avengers that was performing a genocide, essentially, with the Chitauri. So I wonder how they're going to be able to build him up as a character, or build him up and down as a character. Like he's essentially gonna have to be an anti-hero at the beginning of his own show, because like I said, this is not Thor Ragnarok Loki that we're dealing with in this scenario. This is the end of Avengers, where he performed essentially a terrorist act on New York Loki. Okay, we can't ignore that, and I'm hoping that whoever's in charge of this show on Disney Plus is not going to be ignoring it either. So, talked about the Loki scene. I want to go back to this whole concept of time travel. It leads to two things. It leads to a little mini conversation that I want to have about two particular things. One is that, speaking of Disney Plus with the Loki series, they also greenlit a What If series, which is going to be an anthology series. I don't know if it's only going to go on for like one season, that's it, or if it's going to go on for multiple seasons, but apparently it's going to be a What If series, and it's pretty self-explanatory. What if so-and-so played as so-and-so? So you're going to have events from the MCU unfold in a way that you weren't used to as you've been watching these movies up until this point. And I feel like the way, the Avengers time traveled back to these points in time and kind of messed things up a little bit, I think we're going to use these alternate realities as stepping stones for that What If series. Because you have to remember that when we jump back into the Avengers here and Loki made away with that Tesseract, Cap also made off with Loki's scepter, and he told past Cap when they were fighting that Bucky's alive. He fought with him, and he found that little Peggy picture inside of the watch. This past Cap, it's now like he's brought, when he wakes back up, he's gonna be like, wait a minute, what the fuck was that? Like, that reality's kind of messed up. The potential Ice Joltik, you haven't watched it, I'm sorry, it's a little too late for that. The title of the stream says Avengers Endgame spoiler stream. I gotta be honest, that's on you. And you notice I've been streaming now for like an hour. I'm gonna be in the middle of it. I'm sorry, kind of your fault. I mentioned at the beginning, I gave a good 10 minutes, for people to tune in and to flush out. I was generous. That's all I could do, man. That's all I can do. Sorry, buddy. But I cannot be held accountable for this one. But thank you for the haircut, by the way, comment, by the way. Thank you. Anyways, let me finish this up because I only got about 15-20 minutes. So, because I gotta start getting ready for work. So yeah, the time travel concept, like I said, Brian, get out. I'm sorry. I appreciate your viewing of the stream, but you gotta get out. Yeah, you gotta get out. If you have not seen Avengers Endgame, get out before I get more spoiled for you, because there's still more. So not everything was spoiled for you. So go check out the movie, come back, and watch this broadcast on a repeat. It's going to be here for 60 days. I'm a Prime Twitch member, so it's still going to be here for 60 days, not just the traditional, I think, 14 or 15, something like that, all right? Okay, so going back to the time travel concept, it opens up the avenues for the What If series, and that whole way that Avengers timeline was messed up. And it's funny because this also goes back to the rules that had to be, that for a moment I was kind of sketchy on, but apparently they're not going by the Back to the Future rules, which means that you can't kill if your past self dies, you're still okay. It's not going to happen. And that was demonstrated by Nebula killing her past evil self. And for a second, I was expecting her to like grab her chest and be like, and die, and she will be one of the casualties, but that didn't happen. That's because the time travel that's messed up with here is like Banner and explained to Ancient One. It's creating alternate realities when this is happening. So if you kill your past self, you are still part of a reality, of a tangible reality. You can still go on. Which is why Nebula killing her past self, it's fine. And these alternate realities are kind of canon, but not canon, and that's what's going to play off into this What If series. And that's a good, like I said, that's a good foundation for planting that series. The second thing that I want to briefly talk about, because I don't know much about this character, I've heard of him, but don't know much about him, but apparently, according to, like I said, so many publications and theories, the fact that this movie was able to touch on time travel alone and really screw things up with how much they were able to jump back and forth with, this opens up the possibility of our main Phase 4 villain to be Kang the Conqueror. Because the big thing about Kang the Conqueror is that, and I'm a little disappointed that they're probably going to go with him before Galactus, but at the same time that makes sense because Galactus is still part of the Fox acquisition, and like Feige mentioned, all this stuff that they've acquired from Fox, including the mutants, including the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four, it's going to take a really long time for them to be properly injected into the MCU. And part of me is kind of glad, actually most of me, I'm going to say most of me is glad that that's the case. I'm glad that they're not rushing to, I'm glad that we didn't get any hints at the X-Men in this or the Fantastic Four or anything like that. We just get foreshadowment that because time travel was an aspect in this movie, that Kang the Conqueror is much more of a feasible villain to tackle next because of all of these open portals, all these open doors that the Avengers left open for time travel to be a factor that Kang the Conqueror can now take to weaponize and turn himself into a proper villain for our new Avengers to go up against. So I'm like, okay, that is pretty decent. Still, like I said, Galactus or Doctor Doom should be the next big major baddie that could be on the same level as Thanos. But if you want him to be at the same level of Thanos, then he's got to be built up like Thanos. And you can't rush into it. Otherwise, you end up like Justice League. Sorry, I have to do it. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about one area that our Avengers had to go to get one of the stones. But unfortunately, this is where we had to deal with one of our biggest casualties of the movie. Especially with one of our main Avengers. And it's the one that, I gotta be honest, hit me, I think to an extent, hit me a little bit more than our main death at the end, main Avenger death at the end, and that is Black Widow. Because that, again, this caught me off guard so much that Black Widow's dead. And keep in mind that even though she was not as powerful as our main Avengers, she just has her guns and her like little shooters or electrical shooters and her wristbands and her martial arts style, fighting style, acrobatic style. She was still there from the beginning. Ish. You know, technically Tony was there from the beginning, but she was right after with Iron Man 2. She was right there. So seeing her go out, it does hurt a little bit. It does hurt a little bit. Seeing her die. And then that shot of her just like with Gamora, with her blood right here. Seeing her just on the ground like that, it did hurt me a little bit. Because I was expecting Iron Man. I was not expecting Black Widow. So when that came about, that one actually got me in the feels a little bit. Not enough to cry, but enough for me to be like, we really did lose one of our own here. Which is why I was a little hurt, or a little butthurt, a little angsty when there was just so much build up in the funeral for that final death scene. That I'm like, okay, come on, give Black Widow some due. I mean, I know we had that scene with the Avengers on the porch and Captain America crying and all of them trying to think back as to how she could have been, she could have been brought back and all that stuff. And also that also plays into the factor that once they get into all the stones, you do have Hulk saying that he tried to wish her back when he snapped her, but it would have been a little bit of a cop out if she did come back. In fact, to an extent, I was kind of expecting that to be the end credit scene, hinting that she might have come back with the snapback that Hulk made. But at the same time, she didn't die via the previous Thanos snap. She died by giving. Otherwise, one of the stones would have been gone because it would have reversed that. And like Hawkeye said, it's not that simple. Trading a soul for a soul inside of the Soul Stone. It's a done deal. It's permanent. It's set in stone, so to speak. No pun intended. But yeah. So I saw that. And this gives me the notion that this Black Widow spin-off film that we're going to have is probably going to be a prequel. It's going to take place at some point before calamities get to. Actually, it might be a prequel to the entirety of the MCU. Some people have said that this Scarlet Witch, because her name's Scarlett Johansson, it makes it so confusing. But this Black Widow movie is actually going to take place even before Iron Man 2. It could actually be a little recounting of her time in that school where she was actually where she needed to be trained as an assassin, and it's probably going to delve into her being a little bit of an anti-hero, because in the comics Black Widow is more so of an anti-hero. I think there's even some story arcs, some original story arcs in the comics where she was actually a Hydra agent. She was actually meant to be a Hydra. In fact, I was expecting her to turn when the Hydra reveal came about in Winter Soldier. But it didn't happen. They didn't go with that. So I think they might dip their toes a little bit in those plot elements from the comics, but they're going to have her revert back to the Black Widow that we know at the beginning of Iron Man 2, or in Iron Man 2, by the end of that particular movie. I think that's how you're going to be able to structure a compelling film for that character in that spin-off film. So, looking forward to it. But it's definitely going to be a prequel. There's no way to kind of get around, around doing it. All right. So, with that said, our heroes come back. They put together a brand new gauntlet in style of Iron Man with the suit. Hulk snaps back. It looks like everything is back to normal. But lo and behold, leaving that door open for Thanos to come in with that giant-ass ship, and we get our third act, which starts off with a little hot potato game of, or keep away game of the Thanos glove being passed around, with Hawkeye, going around those tunnels, playing into almost like a horror movie. But this leads us into our final battle with our main Avengers, without Hawkeye, really. But our main three Avengers, at least, and also Groot and, well, not Groot, Rocket and all, and War Machine and Hulk are trapped down underneath the rubble, so they're a little incapacitated. But at least we got our main three much more maneuverable Avengers going toe-to-toe with Thanos on a sudden death rematch. And their fight was pretty good, albeit they were getting their ass kicked again. This also led to some rumors going around that this battle was actually going to be like earlier in the movie, and there was even going to be more that we didn't even know about. But I noticed that, I got that feeling that I'm like, this is the third act. When the ship actually bombarded the Avengers estate, the Avengers compound, with all those missiles, that's where I'm like, this is the third point. This is the third act. This is the second turning point. This is the third act. We're in the end game now. Legitimately. And I need some more water. Okay. So, we get our final battle with our three main heroes and chubby Thor. Can you believe that some people were even saying that this is fat shaming? They were criticizing Endgame for fat shaming because of how much they were making fun at Thor for gaining the weight. The reason why they were making fun is because he didn't start off like that. It was the joke was that he gained that weight because he let himself go, because he didn't have any more purpose and he didn't have it in him to get back in there until the very end. Now, unfortunately, it looks like we're gonna have to wait until possibly the next Guardians of the Galaxy to see, fit hot Thor back into the game. So we get this final battle, but a lot of crazy shit happens in this final battle. It's funny because I can't really talk about it. Here is where theories go out the window, and it's more about my reaction to these badass moments. So I'm gonna breeze through them really quickly. But we get our three main Avengers going up against Thor. Going up against Thanos. Thanos taking them down like Bruce Lee goes up against three or four guys, just like that. We were able to see him use his weapon a little bit more efficiently. Like I think at one point the Iron Man shoots his photon lasers into him, and he's able to like spin his double blade around. Like he's able to like shoot the lasers out. It happened all so fast that it's a little hard for me to recount the exact play-by-play of this 3-versus-1 against Thanos fight initially. What I do remember though are some of the moments that led afterwards. With, oh my god, of course, nothing's going to take away the moment when this happened in the theater. I really wish I could have seen this movie in its first showing, because I technically did not see this on the first showing. The first showing was at 6 o'clock Thursday night, April 25th. I saw the 10 o'clock showing, so I couldn't see it the first showing because I missed tickets when they went on sale. Well, I still woke up at 5 in the morning, and thank God I did, because if I didn't wake up at 5 in the morning, I wouldn't have gotten tickets for the 10 o'clock showing. But I did. I wasn't able to see it at 6 o'clock because of the tickets going crazy. But I really wish I did, because I can't begin to imagine how crazy that room got when Cap lifted that fucking hammer. When it showed that shot of the metal portion of Mjolnir going up, I'm like, it's happening. I felt like Michael Scott in The Office, in the fire drill episode, where he walks out of the office and he's just like, "Oh God, it's happening! All right, calm down." That's how I felt. That's how I felt when I saw that shot, and I think so many other people did. I heard some people go, "Oh shit," or something like that. And like I said, I wish I could have seen it at 6 o'clock to see an even more booming reaction. But even at the 10 o'clock showing, even if it's already 1 in the morning at that point, when that hammer hits Thanos to knock him out temporarily, ish, it retracts back and Cap catches it. Everyone just went, whoa! It's the 10 o'clock showing. It's the second showing. All of the main people from the 6 o'clock showing are gone. But even at the 10 o'clock showing, people went crazy. I went crazy. I think I lost myself for a second and did yell out. And then one guy in front, 2 rows down me, got up, gave like a really brief 10-second standing ovation, and then sat back down. And, any other moment in time for any other movie, I would have been like, "Oh, dude, come on, sit down." Well, I wouldn't have said that, but I would have thought that. Not at all here. I'm like, dude, stand up. I was about to stand up, and I was just kind of like, I'm too lazy. I'm too tired. I'm just gonna sit down. I think I woke up early that morning, so I didn't feel like standing, but I would have been right there with him, because that definitely deserves a standing ovation, and nothing for at least the rest of the year is going to be able to replicate a moment like that. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But he catches the fucking hammer, which is brought back by Thor: The Dark World reaccount. I guess I should have mentioned that earlier when I was talking about the time travel stuff, that it was able to give Thor closure with his mother, and it was also able to give us Mjolnir back. So undoing what happened in Thor Ragnarok, which I thought was a very ballsy move. I guess playing devil's advocate here kind of takes away the ballsiness of destroying Mjolnir in Thor Ragnarok. But we still got Stormbreaker. Okay, cool. So this happens. Thor says, "I knew it." And not only is this a callback to, I think, this happening a couple times in the comics of Cap catching Mjolnir, I think, or using Mjolnir, because out of all the Avengers, he's definitely the one that is worthy and pure of heart to be able to pick that up. But it's also calling back, again, going back to what I mentioned earlier in the stream, Endgame was capable, and no offense to Joss Whedon for his writing and directing, but Endgame was able to make Age of Ultron even better, and makes me want to rewatch Age of Ultron. Ever since Endgame, I've been going on YouTube and rewatching scenes from Age of Ultron, even some quieter scenes of them just talking to each other. It makes me want to go and grab that steelbook, that 4K steelbook, and add it to my collection. Who knew? That wasn't going to happen, but now it is, thanks to Endgame. And it's, of course, the callback to what initially was just a joke of Cap slightly inching Mjolnir during that scene when they're all trying to pick it up. It's brought back, and we get that, and it's cemented as a callback with Thor saying, "I knew it," of him finally admitting that, yeah, you're worthy. I didn't want to admit it because of my ego, but Cap, you're worthy. You've been worthy this whole time, but now you're finally able to do it. And it's Cap's use of Mjolnir. Oh my god. I'm like, give me that controller. Give me the controller. I want to play this. With him, going like this, bouncing Mjolnir off the shield, and the shield going against Thanos, and then him picking up some lightning and whooshing it towards Thanos. That was great. And just when you thought it cannot get better, he gets his shield broken into pieces. He gets like a gash, a piece of flesh chunked away from his arm, but he still gets up. He still gets up because that's Captain America. He can do that all day. Which also, by the way his shield is broken up, a lot of people have said that's actually the exact way, that's the exact formation of his shield being torn apart, the way it was in Tony's vision in Age of Ultron. Again, another callback to Age of Ultron that made it even better. But then we get that call in. Cap, it's Sam. Can you hear me? I was like, and it's funny because part of me was getting emotional, and another part of me was like, about time, because the entire time that Cap, Thor, and Iron Man are fighting Thanos, and Cap gets Mjolnir, sure, a badass moment, but at one point I even turned to my girlfriend and I'm like, didn't Professor Hulk snap everybody back? I mean, we saw Ant-Man, looking at the trees, sun was out, there were some more birds, they're humming to, they're chirping to each other, giving us the indication that everything's back to normal. By the way, for a second I thought Ant-Man was dead. The way he was looking out the window and all of a sudden he gets blasted away by those bombs, I'm like, he did not have that much protection. Sure, he's got the suit and everything, but I didn't think he had enough protection to shield himself away from a blast like that. So I thought it was a little iffy that he was still alive, but I'm like, at the same time I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm already preparing myself for the worst here, so we can't lose Ant-Man here. But as soon as I'm thinking, and like I said, telling my girlfriend, like, okay, Hulk snapped things back to normal, right? Where is everybody? Why is it so quiet? Why is it just these guys? And right when I'm thinking that, and Cap gets up, Sam, Cap, it's Sam. You listening? He's like, and then again, another callback, only this time to Winter Soldier, on your left. Doctor Strange portal opens up, and there's just so many emotions going through all of us in the theater. And here it is, guys. I mentioned in my review on YouTube, my spoiler-free review for Endgame, that there was one moment that legitimately made me tear up, made me lose my breath. I got that pin in my stomach, that feeling in my stomach and my throat where you're about to just bawl your eyes out. This is where it happened. Where the portals opened up, all of our heroes coming in, and it's not necessarily our dead heroes coming back to life and taking the fight to Thanos. It's more about the subtext of it, of having these characters that were created 50 odd something years ago by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, and everybody else that were part of Marvel, finally saying, hey, these aren't just some dumb things for kids. This is for everybody. And I'm getting a little emotional talking about it right now. These portals opening up and all these characters coming in to the sound of Alan Silvestri's score and joining together. It was kind of a symbol of that, of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby's, all their creations coming together and being like, hey, this is the only way that we can win and we can be part of families by doing this all together. And that's what that scene meant for me. And that's where I lost it. I was legitimately... actually, I wasn't even tearing up. I was actually streaming down here. And I'm surprised that my girlfriend didn't see me. But yeah, that was the moment. That was the moment that did it in for me. And of course, how can you cap off a moment? No pun intended. How can you cap off a moment like that? You give Captain America his line. Avengers, assemble. He whispers it too. It's like, I don't think the guy in the back heard you. the guy from Wakanda. I don't think he heard you. He's like, he said Avengers. He's like, what? Was he gonna say something? So yeah, they all come back. We get our cool fight scene of everything coming together. Sure, you could argue that maybe we get a little bit of overabundance with CGI, but great moments abound. I forgive them for. This is it. This is what the 10 years was leading up to. It was this moment. And I couldn't have had it any other way. So, this all leads to Doctor Strange's plan coming to motion. Iron Man grabs a hold of all the Infinity Stones, puts it into his armor, and that's where you know that this is the only way that it's going to end. And God, you guys you had it all written up for you, man. I am inevitable. What the fuck? And then Tony, oh yeah, and I am Iron Man. The way the MCU started is the way it ends. He snaps all of Thanos' army, including the resurgence of the Black Order, gets dusted away, and Thanos himself gets dusted away too. In a way, kind of peacefully. And yeah, it was just so poetic seeing Thanos just kind of like look around. And also, if you want to think about it a bit deeply, Thanos died here the same way he won. Thanos lost here the same way he kind of won. He kind of, limps, sits down, rests, takes a deep breath, relaxes, just dusts away. And it's funny, when this happened, people clapped, but they didn't cheer. Because Thanos was such a compelling villain, and it was very hard to not see his point of view that when he died, and he got dusted away permanently now, no future, no past, no workarounds. This is it. Thanos is gone. People clapped, but more in a way of like, the mission was completed, but also Josh Brolin, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for giving us, like I said, a villain that very much is the Darth Vader of the MCU. A lot of I remember the Russos were comparing Thanos to that of trying to emulate Darth Vader in the way of his presence and what he brought to the table, and it looks like he did. It looks like they did. Of course, with the snap, came the casualty that we were all dreading, but knew was come to pass, and that's why I didn't feel too emotional about it. I was much more emotional about the portals and about Black Widow than I was with Tony Stark finally dying, ushering in the closure to his whole arc, because it needed to happen. It was the same way as Logan, what happened in Logan. Tony needed to die, and when I say that, I don't mean that in a negative way where I'm like he needs to die. More so in the way of like, this is this calls back to what Steve said about him. At the end, Steve and Iron Man and Tony Stark, they canceled each other out. They both insulted each other in the original Avengers with insults and phrases that were proven completely wrong in Endgame. And you could argue in maybe some earlier Avengers movies, but more so in Endgame, where Steve said to Tony in the original Avengers that you will not be able to put your life on the line for the betterment of man, or whatever. I'm paraphrasing here. That's exactly what Tony did. He did it. He did the ultimate sacrifice. Something that, out of a humongous, narcissistic, egotistical jerk that Tony Stark is, you wouldn't expect that out of him. And he did it. There you go. And that wraps up our story for Tony Stark. Leading to the famous I Love You 3000 line from the hologram. The funeral, which was very quiet, very somber. It was also a way for the MCU to pay respects to Robert Downey Jr. as an actor. Be like, hey, you're the one that looked at that script back in 2007, I would say. The movie came out in 2008, but it was more so in 2007 where the cast was made, that Robert Downey Jr. was wherever he was, looking at the script. And I think he even mentioned in an interview that he was driving like a used car. It wasn't a fancy car. It was like a used beat-up car to the audition to be Tony Stark, wearing a hand-me-down suit. It was a nice suit, but a hand-me-down suit, but like a suit that Tony Stark would kind of wear. He was the one that took a chance on that script and said, yes. Both the Marvel movies or superhero movies in general, and Robert Downey Jr., they were not in good places in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, but they both met on the same plane, and the rest was history. And, sorry, bumped the mic. My apologies. And Tony's death and subsequent funeral with all of the Avengers, every single Avenger in black, and that beautiful panning shot of all of them, that never cut, and just winding through the crowd of this funeral, through as many of the MCU characters as possible, including even Michael Douglas in there as Hank Pym. And then even the fucking kid from Iron Man 3, who I did not know. In fact, all of us in the theater were like, who's that random kid there by himself? And even my girlfriend's just kind of like, who's that? And I'm like, I don't know. And it was after I finally came home and looked it up online that they're like, oh, that's the... And it hurt me even more. I'm like, that's the kid from Iron Man 3. The kid he helped out. The kid that helped Tony out, and then Tony helped out at the end, giving him equipment. But now he's all a teenager, almost an adult, and there he is. And then, of course, that whole scene ends with Nick Fury, the one to tell him about the Avengers Initiative at the end of the original Iron Man. Beautiful scene. It needed to happen. So many callbacks to earlier MCU movies, especially the cheeseburger line by Morgan. Like, I want a cheeseburger. And Jon Favreau, it must be an emotional thing for Jon Favreau as well, because he's directed. He's also another one who took a chance on that first Iron Man script, along with Robert Downey Jr. He was the director of that first movie. So him being the one to say, yeah, your dad liked cheeseburgers too. I'll get you all the cheeseburgers you want. It got to me. That got to me as well too, because it was like, yeah, that's where it all started, when Tony, rise from the ashes, coming out of that cave, coming back to the States. He wanted a cheeseburger. So yeah, that was crazy. And then this leads us to another sad moment, but also another beautifully written way where it's like, okay, we just got a major death. We just got a very poignant funeral, especially with the arc reactor from the original. Proof that Tony Stark has a heart. Although that arc reactor was used in the first Iron Man where he crashed the glass, so I think maybe she saved the shell with the embroidery and just put a new one in there. I don't know. I'm not going to question it. It's a beautiful moment. I'm not going to ruin it. But we get Cap going back to put the stones back in place, trying to fix as many as those alternate realities as possible. Now, whether or not whatever it is he did in this moment had some other, casualties or some other little circumstances, I don't know. But what we do know is that Bucky's, looks and his body language, and Cap not initially coming back, it was like, oh shit, he knew. I don't know if he told him behind his back, but he knew. He knew something was up. And sure enough, there he is on the bench, and both me and my girlfriend looked at each other and we're like, oh, he stayed. He stayed in the 1940s, and there he is as an old man. By the way, if we were if we were surprised by how great the de-aging effects are from Marvel, making older actors young for certain roles, like Robert Downey Jr. was in Civil War at the beginning there, it looks like they might have outdone themselves by their aging process, because that legit looked like what it will look like convincingly Chris Evans as an old man. Because that's definitely how Chris Evans will look like as an old man. Right here, his little smolder. They capture that really, really well. So that was beautifully done. But again, perfect way to retire Captain America. And that's honestly, that was my theory this whole time. Listen, not to toot my own horn, but that was my theory, that Tony was gonna die, and Cap wasn't gonna die, but they were gonna send him off into the sunset somehow. And that's exactly what they did. They gave him his life back, the life that he was robbed of. They gave him his beautiful times, and now he's technically not dead, but he is an old man, and he's not necessarily fit to be Captain America. Thus, that's what I meant to say, thus passing the shield down to Falcon, who in the comics does become Captain America. Part of me kind of wishes that maybe it should have been Bucky, but then again, Bucky is too fucked up here to maybe properly do it. So he's like, yeah, I think Falcon, he's certified up here, and I think even Bucky's just kind of like, yeah, I'm fucked up. I can't do it. My brain is a mess. Right now I'm still trying to get used to these commands. The homecoming, whatever, from the booklet. So beautiful passing of the torch, while at the same time doing Captain America justice with the way they passed him down, with the way that was done. That's how you could argue it's maybe the safe bet of doing it, but it worked, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. There were some people online saying arguing that did Captain America steal somebody's life away by going back and taking Peggy away from her original husband? Bro, he went back to the 1940s. For all I know, he probably went to the exact time, to the exact point in that year where he could have come back and be like, I survived the plane crash before you meet your future husband. So whatever that other guy doesn't know won't kill him or won't harm him. No harm, no foul. All right? It's fine. It's fine. Okay? Jesus. We're really gonna... Besides, like I said, he earned it. He definitely earned it. And with that, we're left with the end credits scene, which I think is done beautifully. It's the only way to do an end credit scene like that. Again, I already mentioned what I think about it, the movie not having an end credit scene. It's beautiful. Initially, it disappointed me, but right in that moment, but literally like 5 minutes later, I was like, you know what? It's the culmination of the 22 movie saga. It's fine. No end credit scene. It's fine. It's fine. Cool. With that said, I love those end credits. For the most part, they play out traditionally, but showing the images of the actors, ending with the original 6 Avengers, with a very announcement convention-like look. Like, it looks like there's spotlights on them, and you see clips of them from their original movies, the original Avengers, Age of Ultron, past movies, etc. And then you have a little portrait of them with their signature. The signature is beautiful. Apparently, it's inspired by like a original Star Trek show. I think it's Star Trek The Next Generation. I think it's Star Trek Discovery. I mean, no, that's a new one. No. It was an older Star Trek show. Apparently, there was a series finale to one of the older Star Trek shows where they did that, where the end credits had images of the actors, and instead of just showing a title card of the actor's name or actress name, it actually showed their signature, like writing their signature on screen. And they took that and put that as part of the end credits to lead up to kind of commemorate the original 6 Avengers with Jeremy Renner, Scarlett Johansson, Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, and then of course the last 2 had to be the ones that we're saying goodbye to: Captain America, Chris Evans, Captain America, and then Robert Downey Jr. lastly, but certainly not least, as Iron Man. And again, of course, they show them images of all their past movies, the original Captain America movies, the original Iron Man movies, Avengers, etc. That was perfect. That was perfect. And with that, that breaks down all of my spoiler talk for Avengers Endgame. I have to go. I literally need to get dressed in like the next... I need to get dressed and pack up my lunch to go to work in the next like 15 minutes. So I need to really cut this short. I unfortunately cannot get to the Homecoming trailer. I mean, the Far From Home trailer. There's not enough time. I said to myself, if there was enough time, I'll do it. I'll do a reaction here live on camera, but there's not enough time, guys, unfortunately. So it'll have to be for another time. I don't know, but just know that I try to cover as much as I could for Avengers Endgame from what I can remember. I definitely feel enticed to watch the movie a second time. I just need to pick exactly when I can because I don't have a day off until like next Monday, so it's probably going to be a while. So if you're watching this on repeat on either Twitch or YouTube, post in the comments where you guys' thoughts on Avengers Endgame. Go full spoilers because this is the spoiler discussion, so feel free to talk about anything that you want. And that really about does it. So make sure you like and share on YouTube. Follow over on Twitch. Link is going to be in the description. Twitch.tv/DarkSpiderDavid. Go and click there. Hit the follow button. I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to wrap things up now. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And I'll catch you guys all on the next stream. Bye-bye for now.